Hola, buenas tardes. Muchas gracias por tu gran bienvenida. And that is all the Spanish I have for today. I know, I'm ashamed. I wish I could come and talk to you in better both English and Spanish, but I do thank you for your welcome. I thank Ricardo for the wonderful invitation in this incredible festival, and just thank you for being here. It's such a pleasure. Let's talk about the future of life. Now, this is something I think about a lot because I work in biotechnology, and there are things that I've worked on, things that I get to see every day that I think are really changing the future of life. But maybe more importantly, I have twin teenage kids, and I think a lot about what is the future that we're building for them to live in, and what is that going to look like. So, what is the future of life? And I think like a lot of things living in this century, our future is determined by these new tools, these new superpowers that technology gives us. And we've been living for the last 50 years in the digital age, and we're all familiar with the superpowers that we get from the internet and from our supercomputers we carry in our pockets, that we can find information and communicate and seek answers much faster than we used to be able to do. Sometimes we can make mistakes much faster. The internet lets you make mistakes faster than anything except tequila and handguns. So with biotechnology, we're just beginning this biotechnology age, and there are some new tools and some new superpowers there that I think are going to allow us to do incredible things and also make some horrible mistakes. And because I do some of this work, I've seen a few things and maybe gotten a chance to look a little farther, and I wanted to share some of that with you about some of these pieces that I think are really going to change in the next 10 years. Some of these new tools, one is not new at all, the idea of the mRNA vaccines. I hope that it's familiar to every one of you that you've had your COVID-19 vaccinations. What may not be familiar to you is thinking about this as a new tool where we're not just giving you a shot, but we're teaching your body something new. We're using medicine as programming. We're actually reprogramming the human immune system. And using that for the COVID vaccines, as wonderful as they've been and as quickly as that's worked, that is really just the start. Over the next 10 years, we're going to see that used not just for COVID, but for all the variants of COVID, from Alpha to Omicron to Omega. We're going to see it used for flu, so we'll finally get a flu shot that really works, and you'll maybe get 2 or 3 flu shots the rest of your life and never get it again. We're going to see this used for more contagious diseases that we haven't been able to work on, like HIV, like, and this is the biggest one, malaria. More people have died of malaria in the history of the world than anything else, including wars, including other diseases. We may have a new malaria vaccine based on mRNA that will stop that. They're already working on vaccines for cancer. And what's maybe even more incredible than that, mRNA-based genetic engineering that would change the ability for you to get a heart attack or to get Alzheimer's. What if this is the new tool that really wipes out disease? What if we could live in a world where people never suffered from these diseases? What if we could live in a world where everybody had enough to eat inexpensively without hurting the environment, and no animals had to die for that to happen? What if we could make a meat machine where we take just a few cells from an animal, we reproduce those cells, and we're able to make those and form those into a steak or a piece of bacon or a sausage that is delicious and nutritious and very real. It's still made of meat. I have one of my kids really wants to be a vegetarian. They believe in the health part, they believe in the ethical part, but they love sausage. They're like, Dad, we need to hurry up and make this machine. And they really talk about it a lot. They're convinced that it's something that has to happen. My other kid just loves bacon and doesn't care how many pigs have to die for him to get it. So there you go. As we go and we've found out more and more about DNA and how cells work, we've learned how to reprogram cells so that they make not just what they naturally make, but they make things that we want them to make, things that we need them to make, things that today we make in factories that we manufacture. So this is an incredible idea, the new future, where we make our food, as we talked about, our fuel, our fibers, the things that we wear, might all be made by biology. Mother Nature is an incredible creator. She already makes things as diverse as giraffes and coral reefs, right? So what else could we make? And maybe more important than that, what could we unmake? We could maybe go and undo some of our mistakes. So this idea that we could go and take plastic that's in pollution and break it down. Or we could go and take CO2 out of the atmosphere. The things that we could unmake may actually be how we use these technologies to save the planet. So those things are great, but they're in our future. How do we get that best future? How do we bring that about? And after working in this field for a long time and being so privileged to be on teams where we've been able to create things and invent things, or been able to invest in companies that are working on this, the thing that I think is the most important thing that we could do that moves this along the quickest is to make sure we put these tools in the hands of the next generation of scientists, of engineers, of makers, and especially of small, new startup companies. And that's why we created BioCurious. BioCurious is a hackerspace for biotech. It's the first one in the world. And our mission statement is to make biotechnology accessible, affordable, and open to everyone. It's located in the center of Silicon Valley, and I have so many stories I could tell you about what it was like to work on this with the group of incredible people who create it. This is what it looked like on the first day that we opened. We'd had a Kickstarter campaign and raised money. We bought lab supplies. Everybody who had lab equipment, some of us scientists and inventors in our garages, we brought that. We bought lab equipment off of eBay that was broken and fixed it. We even built our own furniture. You can see we're better scientists than furniture builders. The furniture, But it was wonderful to have this open. But let me give you an idea of what we do there. One of the things we do is we teach classes. One of my favorite classes is a hands-on genetic engineering 101 class. We teach students to take a bacteria, how to raise it and grow it, and take DNA and put it in the bacteria so that that bacteria then glows green under a special light, something that never happens in nature. And it's all hands-on. Everything we do there is hands-on because we think that's very important, to go and do things, not just watch them, not just read about them, not just watch it on YouTube. And it's really fantastic to see people experience this. One of the things that is one of my best memories was going to this class and helping teach 5-year-olds how to do genetic engineering. Anybody can do genetic engineering. It's really, if you can follow a recipe, you can do genetic engineering. But should you? We also talk about the ethics of that. And that was my memory of seeing the 5-year-olds taking the genetic engineer's pledge with their hand across their heart and saying, "We will harm no life. We will use our new genetic superpowers for good." And whenever I say 5-year-olds, I'm not kidding. We try to teach these classes for all ages as much as possible. And each one has to be a little bit different. Here is a class of very young kids. We did genetic engineering. That little girl in the corner had her teddy bear, said, "Could we genetically engineer this so he doesn't have bad dreams at night?" And so, yes, and the teddy bear sleeps much better now. That worked. But we do that, and we do story time with slightly older kids. We actually do genetic engineering, and then we do sort of a seminar where they say, if I could genetically engineer something, what business would I build? And they build bioeconomy businesses. And here we had a student who wanted to build a cow with more udders that gave chocolate milk because he really likes chocolate milk and doesn't want to run out. Okay, I like that. We go ahead for teenagers, they like memes, so we do the genetic engineering. Then we have a meme contest talking about what you should and shouldn't do. What are the bad things that happen with genetic engineering? And we even do things with adults. Especially, we get a lot of investors. We get a lot of people who come in who are interested in this as a business, and they want to learn something about it hands-on. I will say, out of all the students, the adults are a little slower than the really young kids. I would much rather have the younger students in there. They learn faster, partly because they're not afraid to make mistakes. They haven't learned that it's bad to make mistakes, and they'll go and try things. We hear a lot about this. Do you really allow kids to work with this expensive equipment? Do you let kids go hands-on with blowtorches? Well, yes, we do. I found whenever you trust kids to do something and let them know that it's in their hands, they very often live up to that trust. So we've gotten some nice awards for being an innovative education company. And that's funny because we don't consider ourselves educators. We don't really consider ourselves a company. We're all volunteers. And what we really wanted to do was be able to enable other companies. We want to help build companies, especially companies that are wanting to use these new biotechnology tools to change the world. Because we're really in the age of the biotechnology garage inventor. If in Silicon Valley you can have two guys in a garage with laptops and they start the next Facebook or Apple or the next big internet company, why can't you have a girl and a guy in a garage and they start the next big company to wipe out cancer? Often the reason that they can't do that is they need $1 million worth of machines before they can get started. We give that to them, and they can come in on day one and use all the equipment in our lab. Let me share with you one example that I just love this particular example. The company Miraculous. Almost 10 years ago they started, and in fact, Miraculous, one of the co-founders, the original CTO, is Jorge Soto, and I know some of you guys here know Jorge. He's a very proud son of Mexico, and he's just one of the best people that I've ever met. They did all of their first work. They developed their prototype and their proof of principle in BioCurious, and they did it very quickly, very cheaply, determined they could do it. And then over the last 10 years, they're a 10-year overnight success story. They've worked on this technology, and they've gotten it to the point where instead of what we have to do in a lab where we follow our recipes and move little bits of liquid around laboriously and by hand, they have all of this shrunk down to a small chip, and they're able to move liquid around using microfluidics. This is very impressive. These are machines that are now in labs all over the world, and they're now a huge player on the biotechnology front. This is what we mean when we say we want to enable these companies to change the world. We've had over 50 companies come out of BioCurious, launch there and go out into the world. They've received over $250 million in follow-on funding. We're seeing this model be copied in universities, in innovation spaces, and in large companies that are wanting to do their own hacker spaces to attract inventors and partners in their work. And we are seeing these hacker spaces being built all over the world. I like to tell people we are everywhere. And if you look at this map picture, this is a very recent picture from DIYbio.org. DIYbio.org charts all of the different hacker spaces and labs and groups working on this. If you want to find one near you or you want to start one, go there. You can also communicate with different people, find their websites, find their social media on there. I've been really privileged and lucky as I travel around the world for business. I'll take a side trip and go to some of these different hacker spaces and get to see what they're doing. And they're all different. They're all unique. They have these people. Some of them want to work on starting new companies. Some of them want to work on education. Some of them are all about art. And bio art is really weird and cool. Some of them are activists. The one thing they have in common is they want this technology to be in more people's hands so they can use it for good and understand it. So before I leave you, I want to share some of the lessons that we learned when we were building BioCurious. And these are not lessons about biotechnology, not really lessons about how to do a lab, as much as they're lessons about how to live in a world that technology is changing so quickly. I think that they have some use, some utility for somebody who is in a business, whether it's new or old, large or small, and you're having to surf the wave of technology. And especially, I think it's got some use for students who are looking at living in this world and trying to chart their path and navigate to good success. So the first lesson is a prototype beats a plan. And what I mean by this is going and just trying something is better than sitting around talking about it or thinking about it. And there's a reason for this. We're in the middle of this exponential revolution. Knowledge is doubling all the time. The time is getting shorter and shorter. What that means for us practically is the past is no longer a guide to what is possible in the future. You can't figure out what's going to work by looking at how other people have done something. You've got to go out and try it and do it. We have new inventions. We have new recipes. Borders are moving. Right? Limits vanish. So if you want to do something new, whether it's make a new invention or make a new business, the best thing you can do is go out and try it. Even if you fail, you will have learned something. Especially if you fail, you will have learned something. Second lesson, community is the secret ingredient. When we built BioCurious, we thought we were trying to find a place, a building, that we could take all of our different machines and equipment and put those inside so we could go and do work. We were wrong. What we were really doing was finding a place where people could come together and meet each other and talk about what they were doing and find expertise and knowledge, find apprentices and masters, go ahead and share their dreams about what they wanted to work on, and even find better dreams. It turns out that the social part of being in a space like that and being able to talk to other people was sometimes more important than the structure or the tools that were in it. And the people that would meet and the networks that would form were just amazing. I get asked all the time, somebody will say, I want to form an innovation space. I want to make a biohacker space. I want to do something. Will you help me? And let me say, I love being asked that, and if you ask me that, if you want to do that, my answer is yes. But the first question people always ask is, what's the list of equipment I need? What can I go ahead and buy and put together so people will come to my space? That's the wrong question to ask. Do not start with an equipment list. What you want to start with is the people. Find the people who share your dream, the people who want to do a thing. If you don't already know them, then have a meetup or go post flyers around campus and get everybody together and have a pizza and have somebody come in and give a lecture, and you will find people who want to do the thing that you want to do, who share your dream, or who have better dreams even than what you dreamt of that you can build on. This is the way to go. Last piece. Find the overlap, find the edges. Anytime you want to work on something, the best, most interesting, newest breakthroughs are not in a single field anymore. They're not in a narrow place, a narrow piece of study. They're where all these different fields overlap. I don't really work in biotechnology anymore. I work in biotechnology and artificial intelligence and material science. And sometimes I know frighteningly little about some of those other things. So you've got to learn and know about a lot of things, or you've got to know more about what's going on in all of these spaces, know people who know about all of these spaces. You've got to have a team that can all communicate together, or be that communicator, that translator, where you can go ahead and somebody who is in artificial intelligence and somebody who's in material science say, what they really mean is this. And the best way to learn a new field is to look at the edges of the field. If you want to see how big something is, you have to see the edges. The edges are where everything's happening. They're the borders. You want to know what's possible, what's almost possible, What can we do? What can we almost do? And then if we move those borders just a little bit, what's the new thing that we can do? So, what is the future of life? I think it's more tools and more hands, and you get more breakthroughs. And those tools work best in hands that are not just governments and big universities and big corporations. They're in the hands of our youngest, newest students, and the hands of the smallest companies and the newest startups, because they can take those much farther, much faster. Whenever they do, that's when we democratize biotechnology, and that's whenever we get a revolution. So, viva la revolución científica. Thank you so much for your attention.